Okie dokie. No questions just yet. We'll go ahead and look over the FAQs and see if we can go over a couple of them. All right, looks like one of our questions is, why does my agent not show in the property? Why does my agent? Ah, I see. So it's asking about how to create property tables in the agent portal. So we can go ahead and take a look at that. I'll head down to my gear icon, get into my organization and users, into my agents. I'll go ahead and log into this agent here because I know they have some properties that are associated with them. Similar to how you create your tables and segments in your own account, agents can also create tables and segments here. Typically, they already have one that's created. Usually it's called transactions, but they can go to segments and they can create specific segments as well. You can see here I've got an active listing, buyers under contract, sellers under contract. We can also select create new segment if we wanted to create a new one. I'm going to go ahead and select one of the ones I already have created. Again, it's just saying create segment, and that segment gets created here. The next part is going through and making sure that we're filtering the information correctly. So we're going to go over to contract client type. We're going to select edit and just make sure that our buyer is selected. If we also want to see dual, we'll also want to make sure dual is selected. And then we can say close. Now we see those filters have been updated. It is going to show us any properties that are marked as buyer or seller for the contract client type. Below that, we have our contract status, another option to be able to go through and update and use those filters. Again, we can click on edit. Here we'll see all of the contract statuses that are currently available. We can select the ones that we need, and then we can say close. It's going to update that. And again, it's going to pull in those properties. The next thing that I usually suggest our agents do is click on our table columns and update their table columns. So in this case, if we're talking about a buyer, maybe we want to see the earnest amount and the due date for these particular properties, or maybe the receipt date makes more sense. So that way we know, okay, well, this is the amount they were supposed to pay. This is the day that we was received. We possibly want to add in that contract date or the filing status if we need it. And again, with these fields, we can reorder them. So if we want that contract date to be first, we can drag that up to the top. We can go through and add in any other number of fields that we'd like to. If we want to know what kind of inspections they've done, if we want to add on any of the closing details, the walkthrough status for any of these properties, we can do that. Again, we can reorder these in whatever order makes sense. We can also go to contacts if we wanted to really quickly have a high level view of our buyers in this case. We can click on buyers. It's going to pull open our buyers. When I say update, it is going to update those column headers here up at the top. Now that I feel good about this, I can go in, and the final thing that I want to do is select my date range. So usually I suggest if we're looking for our buyers, maybe we want to see year to date, maybe we want to see this month. I'm going to go ahead and say year to date in this example. We can then click on the created date and select edit. And then here we can say based off of the execution date that lands within this year. So now that we've updated our filters, we can click on this little arrow to collapse this view. And now we can see the columns at the top for these properties, the contract date, earnest money amount. We can see if they've received that earnest money receipt date. We can see the under contract pending, types of inspections, final walkthrough, and the buyers, if the buyers have been added on there. I kind of like going through this regardless on our Wednesday workshop. Obviously, this is the same thing that you can do when you're talking about your internal, setting it up for your internal properties and tables. But this is kind of a great way to like go in and just make sure, okay, cool. This is how our agents can do it as well if they're using this view. Now, as you guys know, we have been working on our mobile app very, very in depth recently. We've been making a lot of different types of changes and updates to them. Some of the filtering and the way that this looks right now is going to be really helpful for your agents to be able to know how to do once that mobile app gets published and it's ready for everyone to use. Some of the capabilities that different user types will have can alter with this new update. We've heard your feedback. and we've taken a stab at updating some permissions to certain things that certain people have, certain users have. So lots of cool things, looking forward to that. So I think it's a good thing for you guys to know how to make these columns, these tables and segments. That way, if you need to, you can show your agents how to do so as well. Again, if we want to go to the other ones, we're just going to click back on that segment. We'll click on sellers, and now we're looking at the sellers. If we need to go and we need to create a new one, we can always click back on that drop down and say create new segment. Or if we want to go back to that main list of all those properties, we can click on transactions and we can click back on transactions. And now it's going to show us all of the properties that are currently assigned to this particular agent. Cool. Looks like we do have a question. Is there a way the agents can see custom buttons and notes? Notes, yes. Buttons, let's go check it out. I have not seen that yet. So let's go ahead and check that out. Let me make sure I've got a property that has like what I need to have on it. And sorry, my mouse is a little dirty right now and it's taking me a minute to get it to click on things. There we go. Cool. Let me just make sure that I have some documents on this property. Cool, I've got documents, I've got buttons selected. Awesome. Just wanted to make sure I have something on that one. And that one's assigned to Justin. Perfect. Let's go back down to our organization users. We'll go into our agents. Here's Justin. We'll impersonate him. All right. Ivy Lane. When it comes to notes, notes should be shared depending on where you're entering in those notes, obviously. But notes should be shared. For documents, I believe it's going to give you the list of documents. So here you can see the list of documents that are currently available, but I don't see any notes that are showing up here. Let's go ahead and do a test. I'm just going to open up my open to close account again. I believe if I unimpersonate, it might take me out of it, but that's fine. When we're talking about our notes, I'm going to go over to our gear icon and I'm going to get into our global settings really quickly. Once I'm in my global settings, I'm going to go over to the notes settings and here we've got our notes. Okay. So here, if I have it set as do not exclude on the document placeholders and file notes, if I do not have this button selected, it is going to automatically exclude all notes. Okay. So automatically all notes are excluded from showing up in the agent portal, client portal, or mobile app until you go in and you select this button. If I select this button now, it is going to make it so that any new notes added from this moment on will be available to be seen. Now, when we're on that particular property, I'm going to go ahead and unselect this button because I don't want that turned on in my account. When we're on that particular property, when we're taking a look at those documents, here we've got this document. I'm just going to go ahead and select toggle notes to show up our notes. I can come here and I can add in, this is a test to see if notes show in the agent portal. Okay. Just going to add that note. We'll say save as new. Now that that's been added on there, we see that it's on there, but there's no way to make it that it's either seen or not seen, right? If we click on where it says notes, it's got this little one icon here. It's going to pop up this screen. And now we can make sure to remove that exclude button. If it is a dark gray color, it is excluding it. It will not show. If it is a light gray color like this, it will show, or it should show. We'll go ahead and take a look in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that extra tab. So this is meant to be a test, right? To see if it does show up. So I'll go ahead and close out of this. I'm going to close out of this property. We'll get back down to our organization users, head over to our agents. We're going to impersonate that agent again. Once we're in there, we're going to go back over to our Ivy Lane property, head back down to our documents, and we are looking. Actually, I wasn't even sure which document it was. Let's see if it shows up underneath notes. Okay, it doesn't show up underneath there. I believe it should show up underneath the placeholder, but it looks like I am not seeing them. Okay, so I do not see any notes showing up here. Now, that could not be the same for the mobile app. On the mobile app, it might show the notes, but here I'm not seeing any custom buttons, obviously, and I'm not seeing any notes. Now, like I said, we've been having some pretty massive updates and upgrades to our mobile app. We're in the current stages of testing and refinement. I don't know. We might, we're going through V1 right now. I'm not sure if we're going to have a V2. It kind of just depends on how things go as far as for QA, but that kind of functionality is something that will be made available in the new mobile app. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Just because I've seen it. Yes, Kelly. Is there a
Um,
place that I can look for this? Do you know?
it, I think it was on the one of the addendums that you had. There's little drop down arrows. Could it be if you hit view?
Just shows me a copy of the,
Of the
yeah.
darn. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. I'm glad you asked it because I wouldn't have clicked on it because I knew that it was just going to show me a, a copy of the document. But I'm glad that you mentioned it because, so yeah, when we click on that little drop down, we're either allowed to download them or we can just view a version of that property. Or I mean, I'm sorry, a version of that document. But that's really it. It doesn't seem like we're getting any other kind of viewpoint on it, which is curious because I feel like, with that setting that we have, it says that it shows it, and again, it said mobile app as well, and that's kind of where I think that setting is meant to be working with, is specifically with the mobile app. Um so I'll have to actually get with you, Kelly, after this and test it out and see if in the current mobile app that's downloadable, do we have the ability to see notes that are pushed over through the documents that way. Um, and take a peek on that. Now, another feature that you guys probably saw and you were like, what is that? Is the app messages. So depending on what plan you're on, so if you're on the scale plan, you should have access to this particular tool. The app messages allows you, or the messaging tool allows you to message about that particular document. So let's say, we've got this appraisal contingency writer and I have questions about it. I can click on this little app button and the agent, so let's pretending I'm Justin, Justin can reach out and say, I need an update on if we have sent this over to the appropriate parties. Right? Let's say that's what he's reaching out about. This tool here allows you to message regarding that particular document. Now, once that message has been sent, we can go down to messages, we can go to send, and we can see any messages that have been sent. If we log out of the agent portal and we go back into our internal portal, right? So this is like the user logging in. Here we can see the little at message up at the top, and we've got this message here. We can see which property it's about, so we can go to it if we'd like to. We can view the thread if we'd like to. Usually I suggest adding in more details, right? Maybe adding in what exactly we were talking about, because right here it just defaults for the subject to show it's an open to close message. This is the property that it's on, but it also has the property up here. So I usually say, like grab the name of the document, pop it into that subject. That way, when they reach out, you know exactly what they're talking about. But we can go back to this property. When we're on this property, we can go to messages and we can see a copy of that message as well. So now they can message you back if they need to. So I can reply and I can say, which document? And send the reply. Now I'm just having a private conversation with myself, obviously, but you can set it up where you have different notifications. I'm trying to figure out where they're. Here we go. For our messages, we do have the ability to send out a different kind of notification. So it doesn't just have to be internal within open to close. You can also set up that message so that, again, do we want it with an email? Do we want it with a copy of it? Do we need a copy of it? And then do we want a daily summary of unread messages? So this is just some of the settings that are regards to messages. But if I go back into organization users, I log back in as that agent. Up at the top, once again, we've got that at message. They can also go to the property and they'll see that they have a message. And now they can go, oh, yeah, wait. Oh, my bad. Let me grab the name of that document really quickly. It's the appraisal contingency writer. Reply. Oop. Missed out on my A. And send reply. And now, if you're, again, an internal user, you've got that notification again. Here we can go ahead and say review the thread. We said which document. I believe we might have to go to the property, and it also might not have sent because I don't know if I actually selected sent or if I just sent enter and in there. But that's kind of how you can use our internal messaging tool as well to go through and have conversations back and forth with your agents if need be on that particular property. And it keeps a copy of that thread of that conversation on the property. Well, alrighty. Again, if there are any other questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A. I'm just going to take a look at the other FAQs and see if there's other ones that we can go through. So this is a great question. Smartblock isn't working when multiple options are selected. Our answer is conditional logic cannot be used with multiple select. And that is completely and entirely true. When we have a field, I'm going to go ahead and go over to my, I'll go over to my property here. I'm going to expand my fields really quickly. I'm going to go down to where I have my inspection fields. Here we go. So here's my inspection fields. This inspection type here, types of inspections. Right now it has general, pool, and radon. If I click on that drop down, here what I want you guys to take notice is that I can select more than one option. I can select post termite, I can select roof, I can select all of them, or I can select none of them, right? Whatever I need to select, I can select from this list. When we're talking about multiple select, we have now changed this particular field to have a very, very large number of different versions or different ways that you can have this. I would have to do the math, but I know that usually with like 5 different options, you open yourself up to having, I think it's 50 different choices. Right? You can have it where just the first one selected, just the second one selected, just the first and second one is selected, just the first, second, third one is selected, right? So it ends up creating this like this ability to have an enormous number of options for conditions. So we do not allow conditional logic to be used with multiple select choice fields, right? So if you have a field like types of inspection and you have it set up as a choice field or multiple choice field, and I'm just going to go ahead and say save on that. I'll click on our editor and then I will go down to types of inspection. Here we go. That field, if we have this particular option selected as yes, it does not allow it to be used as a condition in your conditional logic because there's just too many variables that could possibly be selected. You could have your conditional logic say, well, if it says that it's general and pest and termite, you might run into some issues with, well, what happens when it's general and pest and termite, but also pool? And the system kind of gets a little confused at that point. They're like, wait, are we considering this? Are we not considering this? So we do not allow for multiple select. Same thing with our intake forms and internally and dynamic. Multiple select does not work very well with conditional logic. Now, what I would usually suggest if you guys need to have conditional logic like that on your on your smart blocks is to have it more clear cut as far as for what you're doing. So for example, like types of inspections, right? If that is something that you guys are trying to track, you need to track whether or not they're doing pool or radon or general. I would have it set up in a different way. Typically those types of inspections, if they all have their own different due dates, I would have those due dates on there. And I would say if the due date is not blank, then I want this particular smart block to pop up. So I would instead have it still that, here we can see the types of inspections that we need to do, right? By using that multiple choice. But for our conditional logic, we want to think of a different way that we can handle it. If we want to say that there's general plus, we want to have a different option to be able to choose that type of option for our inspections. So usually like a due date works, or if you need to have another field that says yes or no, we're handling that. That'll work too. I've seen some people have it where they have types of inspections, they have it on multiple choice, and they have those options listed. And then the TC goes in and they answer separate questions and they just say yes or no, whether or not they've been scheduled. So, not necessarily yes, we're doing it or no, we're not doing it. But instead, it just asks, has the pool been inspection been scheduled? Has the general inspection been scheduled? Has radon been scheduled? Kind of thing. And as long as those have had yes to them, then they have those smart blocks come on. The other option obviously is making sure that you have a smart block selected for each individual option selected as well, right? So instead of having it that it could be multiple select, you have it that if general is selected, then share this information. If pool is selected, then share this information. If pest is selected, then share this information. Let me know if you guys want to take a look at a smart block today. I was hoping to get some information from a client that I met with earlier this week about an example of a smart block that they would want to see built out in their account, but I have not heard from them yet. So we're not going to be able to go over that today. Unless someone is like, actually, could you just build me like a baby smart block? Like, what does a baby smart block look like? Then we can kind of go over one because I'm sure I can think of an example of one. And if not, I've got Kelly with me too. She probably has an example of a smart block that we could build out together too. Ba-bum. Ah, okay. So we've got another question, and I've actually seen this multiple times. Permissions have been selected for my new team member, and they, like, so they have access to everything, but we still can't see the properties. What's going on? Remember, when you invite a new team member, and I'm going to go down to my gear icon into my organization and settings. When we invite a new team member to our open to close account, permissions are super important, right? It gives them access to go through, select what they need to see, what they need to see, do what they need to do within your account. However, we also want to make sure that we've added them to the team that they need to work on. If they've not been added to a team, they're not going to see any properties that are underneath that particular team. Anytime you guys go to fill out an intake form, if you're filling out an internal one, you're selecting the team and you're selecting the user that it's going to be assigned to. If that team member is not on a team, they can't be selected from that dropdown. So the first thing that I usually suggest is you've invited the person, even before they've logged in. If you know which team they're going to be on, invite your person, click on team, locate the team, add that person on there. So here I'm going to click on it. I'm going to add Zed. Boom. Now they're added on there. From there, I would then go and click on roles and make sure that we have their roles associated with them as well. That way, when Zed logs in, they're able to see what they need to see already ready in their account. And they're not like, well, there's no property, so there's nothing for me to do. So I'll just log back out, right? We want to make sure that when you invite your agent or your team members to your open to close portal, that they can just kind of jump in and they can get started with it and they can start having fun with it. Now, if you're not sure which team they should be on yet, maybe you're just kind of like, let me get you in here. Let me set up your permissions, but I'm not going to add you to a team just yet. I want you to get more familiar with like setting certain things up. Technically, your agents your team members who are not on teams, they still have technically access to open and close. They just don't see any of the properties. So they can go over to their property view and they can still create all of the tables and segments if they need to, or if you need to give them access to them, they can have that set up automatically. They can go into their task pipeline and set up their snapshots. Again, they just won't be able to see those properties. But there's nothing wrong with you having them, hey, before I add you to a team, we're trying to figure out placement for you just right now, we still are going through that. You can definitely go through and have them set up their tables and segments for their properties, set up their task pipeline, their trigger pipeline, and any other area that they need to. I would have them come in and I would have them set up their email signatures, make sure that their email signature is set up and that it's assigned to them. I would make sure that they have their email address connected, either through using our Google integration or our Microsoft integration. And if you guys are not using those currently and you're using the other way of doing it, I would probably set up the non-API email address for them yourself. That way they don't have to worry about setting that up, but I would definitely have them connect those things. And then once you know that, okay, cool, they've gotten their part set up, they've got their tables, their segments, they've got their task pipeline, they've got their trigger pipeline, the basics of what they think they might need. And maybe they followed a tutorial from us, right? If they need it. Um, from there, then you can add them to the team, and then those properties will start to show up. You could also create a very specific team that's called the onboarding team, and maybe it only has test transactions. And on that particular thing, you just have them go through and practice checking off tasks and practice uploading documents and practice using the integrations, right? Connecting to that follow-up boss and pushing that over. Kind of just depends on how you want to onboard your team and onboard any new team members. Cool. Daily account health check. Uh, Kelly, have you seen a daily account health check before in a property?
The only thing I was thinking on that one was the health bar.
That's what I was thinking too, but I'm wondering if it's something that because it says it is a prompt for the first user of the organization to log in for the day. It helps triggers and tasks to show accurately on their dates and priority color. So, do you think it could be like a refresh button that shows up? Because I don't think I've seen that one before.
I don't I don't know either.
Okay. No worries. We can definitely reach out to support if you want to ping Clyde and ask him, be like, hey, Clyde, about that last FAQ, what does that mean? And we'll go ahead and poke around after that. Because when I read that, I was like, oh, you know what? I haven't seen that yet. But of course, if Kelly and I are logging in, usually we're logging in to assist you guys, right? So we're logging into your account, but you've already logged in for the day, or we're logging into our test account, which has been it's used quite frequently. So maybe I haven't seen it, but whoever comes in shift before me has logged in and seen that particular prompt. Um, or I'm actually curious, have any of you guys seen a prompt in your account that says daily account health check? Just curious if you've seen that in your account. Looks like we had an update to our changelog as of June 8th. So we'll go over to our person icon. We can click on our changelog and we can see any changelog updates that we've had here. This is just some of the stuff that we've gotten through as far as for bugs. We've had a lot of updates to the system recently. When it comes to bugs, you can see this is quite a long list. So definitely come in here and check those out and take a look at like what's been going on here. If you guys are looking through this, I recently had a conversation with one of my clients about the Idea Lab and about the changelog. I definitely suggest if you've made a suggestion in the Idea Lab here, I definitely suggest taking a look at the changelog and seeing if any updates have happened to the changelog. Now, usually we like to give you guys some sort of message or notification saying, hey, the thing that you requested, we've made that update to it and it's available now. But we don't always get the opportunity to do it depending on maybe you just voted it up, right? And you're not the original poster. And so you don't know whether or not this has been updated or not or added in here. So definitely check this out. One of my next projects is probably going to be going through and making sure that our changelog has been updated like recently. We've gone through and we've done this big audit and we found a couple things that are already features within open to close that seem to be that may have been overlooked based off of, maybe you haven't been trained on it so you don't know that it's there. One of the ones that I most recently heard was we want to be able to have the ability to export contacts. And you can, as long as you have access to it, of course, right? So if you haven't given your team members access, again, it's going to be going into their permissions, making sure that their permissions are set up. But if you've given them access to do so, you can have them select any number of people and they can click on export CSV and then they can export those contacts if they need to from open to close. So just a couple things. So we'll be going through those soon and just making some updates and posting what we can do and what we can't do. Cool. Looks like we've got a question. How do agents access the intake form in their agent portals? Right now, when we test, it does not look like it is an option for them to select. Awesome. So there's going to be there's two ways that we can set this up. The first way that we can set it up is we can go over to our gear icon, head into our organization and users, head over to our agents, and then select the agent that we want to update. So here we're just going to select Justin's name. It's blue. Usually blue means that it's selectable. So just keep that in mind. If you see something blue, it might be able to be selected. From here, we're going to go to forms. And then here you're going to see any forms that he currently has active or available to him. We can also click on this drop down here and we can see any other forms that we might need to add. This is a great tool to use, or this is a great way to do it if you've got only a couple agents, right? Let's say you've only got like 3 or 4. This is a fine way to do it to make sure that they have access to it. However, if you're like, Hannah, I have to do this and I have like 20 agents, 15 agents on my list. That's like a lot of times of clicking on agent, clicking on their name, clicking on forms, adding the form, updating the form information, and then going back and then clicking on the next agent. That's a lot. Is there a faster way that I can do this? Yes. The other way that you can do it is by exiting out and heading down to our hammer icon, getting into templates, getting down to our intake form templates. And then we're going to edit whatever intake form we want to give access to. So let's say, okay, well, out of those 15 people, I need to add 10 people to the buyer side. And then the other 5 need to go to my new listing and my seller residential, right? So for those 10 people, we're going to select edit on our buyer side. And we're going to go down to assigned agents. Now here, this is where we can actually just search the agent's name. So I'm just going to type in Justin because I know he's one of my agents. Once we've typed in Justin, we can select that little add plus button. Now, obviously, Justin's already been added on here, but he would pop up at the top. You'd be prompted to add on his team, who that transaction is going to be assigned to, select the brokerage, and select the time. So here, this one's his team right now. It's his listing. So I'm going to update this because this is my buyer's intake form. And I'm going to go to add it to my Southwest buyers. Here you can see it shows that team member in red. So we're going to select the team member that it's going to be assigned to. And then here you can see it's implementation brokerage. So let me actually just change that to, we'll do content team. Do I not have my, there we go, implementation. We'll change it to transaction team and then put it on the implementation team. So now it's a lot faster. So you're just grabbing that name, popping it on there, updating the team, the user, the broker, the time zone, next person. And adding on each one of those agents to that particular intake form so they have access to it. Once you make sure that they've been listed here and they have their team and their team user selected, they have that brokerage added on there and they have that time zone added on there, when the agent logs in, they're just once again logging into open to close. So I'll go to agent, I'll go ahead and log in. Once they've logged into their open to close account, they're going to head over to their little form icon. We can also click on the 3-line icon and we can say intake forms here. Once they've clicked on that, here we're going to see those intake forms listed. They can click on start form and it's going to pop open that intake for them. Now, again, and I've kind of pointed this out before, because right, whenever we're an internal user, we have to select the team member and team. Well, we've already selected that. That was the whole idea of making sure that it's already assigned. That way, when that intake form comes in, it notifies the person that needs to approve it. So here, the agent is just popping in the address and they're filling out that intake form. They're saying yes, no, they're popping in their data. They're saying what they're doing with this particular property, and they're going from there. Cool. Let me know if that helps. And if you are not seeing those options, Allison, if you're like looking through and you're like, all right, I did both the things that you said and I do not see those options, definitely reach out to us in support and we'll take a look at your account and see what's going on there. But those would be the ways that you would want to make sure to get the agents access to those intake forms. Some of you guys might have access to our public intake forms. Public intake forms are slightly different. They're going to be something that's a link that you can share to anyone. I usually suggest, if it's a link, be very mindful of that link, right? Because the moment you send it out, if it goes to someone, they can send it to whoever they want to send it to, and then they immediately have access to submitting intake forms to your open to close account. We typically do not allow people who are still on trial to use the public intake form. And the reason being is because if, again, you share that link and someone starts using it and you're on trial, they can very quickly use up all of your trial transactions. So keep that in mind. If you're on trial and you're like, I want to use the public intake form, that's kind of one of the caveats with it is we're like, oh, well, be mindful. You share that link, they fill it out. We cannot give you those trials back. They use them, right? And all they need to do when we're filling out an intake form to use up a trial transaction is go here. And again, these are already selected. Cool. All they need to do is select save and continue. So if they don't even submit that transaction to you, right? They're just testing it out. They want to get the feel for it, right? If they say save and continue, that uses up one of your your properties. So just something to be mindful of when it comes to sharing those links if you guys do have access to the public intake forms. If you're interested in public intake forms, we do have a great article about it. You can go over to our little person icon, support center, and you should be able to type in public and search for it. And here find our public intake forms. And this just goes over and it talks about what it is. Again, it even says it here. It's still in beta testing, but you can definitely go through and kind of see what that looks like. There are some caveats with public intake forms. We want to make sure that the information that you're asking for on it is assisting in making things easier for your TCs. And what I mean by that is that typically if you're going to use a public intake form, you're going to want to have um, you're going to want to have a field that's required that forces whoever's filling it out to enter in their name. And hopefully they're going to be honest about who their name is. You could also have a drop down as well, depending on how many agents you have. If you've got, 50 plus agents, might not make sense to have a drop down. But if you've got, 5, 10, maybe even 20 agents, it might be okay to have that drop down so they could select themselves from that list. Just depends on what you want to give them access to seeing. Do they need to see the other people that you work with? Are you guys on a team like a brokerage? Or is it that you're working with solo agents and you're a TC company? And maybe you want to have it that they enter in their name versus, selecting from a drop down and going, oh, I didn't know they worked with so and so. That's crazy. Or, oh, I didn't know that they worked with this person or whoever. Cool. Looks like we don't have any other FAQs that I wanted to review right now. And I do not see any questions. I'll go ahead and give you guys like another couple minutes, add in any other questions that you guys might have before I let you go. Next week, we're probably going to shift the way we have our Wednesday workshop, seeing as we're kind of getting into the busy season and we haven't had as many questions as we usually do. Usually a lot of our questions end up happening around like the fall time or in spring. And usually once we hit summer, everyone's super busy showing houses and so we don't usually have a huge number of questions coming in. I'm also hoping that the reason we don't have a lot of questions is because we have a lot of really great articles and you guys are getting help from support in the way that you need it. But we'll probably be shifting it a little bit. And I think that I'll probably announce the topic that we're going to cover at the beginning of Wednesday workshop. So it could be something like how to build out a smart block. It could be something like how to do an audit of your intake form. It could be something like how to upgrade and maximize your task template use or your property template use, or how to convert to property templates, or I'm sorry, property trigger templates. If you guys are thinking about moving to the scale plan, what does that look like? Just to give you guys an idea of some of the things that we might be altering for anyone who is, watching this recording back and they're like, what is going to happen with our next Wednesday workshop? I usually like to do these announcements at the end of the call. As always, I'll go over my end of call spiel. Doesn't look like we still don't have any questions. Go ahead and pop them in there if you do have them while I'm talking, and I will go over them. I'll pause and we'll just go over those. As always, you guys can reach out to us by using our chat icon. If you need help, if you run into anything, definitely send us a message. That way we can get with you and help you out. Otherwise, you can send us an email at help@open2close. If you're looking for more webinars like today's webinar, you're going to go to our Learn tab and you're going to click on Webinars. That's going to show up our webinars. We are currently like constantly going through and figuring out what kind of on-demand webinars you guys need. Right now, this is just getting set up within your Open to Close account, but this is going to expand. Eventually we're going to be creating a webinar that goes over the playbook and how to build out your SOPs for Open to Close. We're going to be having a webinar that goes over commissions and how to create commission templates within Open to Close. A couple ways of building out commission templates with Open to Close. So there's a couple different things that might show up on this page. Definitely take a look here. We'll also obviously announce them on our Wednesday workshop and within Open to Close. If you guys are looking for onboarding, You can always go to our Learn tab, click on onboarding, and reach out to us to get scheduled. You can also schedule a time here. Kind of depends. You'll either get scheduled with our implementation manager or you might get scheduled with me to talk about what your implementation needs are. If you're looking for hourly time with our team, you're looking with do it with you. Or if you're just trying to understand what free resources are out there as far as for learning our system. Other than that, if there's any other new updates, we'll definitely make sure to post those up in the in open to close. That way you guys see them. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. So thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for asking the questions that you did ask. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Make sure you're staying cool and hydrated. I'm in the middle of like a heat wave right now, and it has been horrendous for me and my pets. We are not very happy about how hot it's been. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next week.